Last weekend, I went with some friends to go watch the new Fantastic Four movie, and there are going to be spoilers. But before we get to the spoilers, for whoever hasn't watched it yet, I kind of don't really recommend the movie. It didn't impress me. I didn't really like it. I wouldn't watch it again personally, but if you're a big Marvel fan, if you really want to watch Fantastic Four, go ahead. I just personally, I thought that the trailers made it seem a lot better, and I heard some good stuff about it going into it, and it just kind of kind of disappointing. But for everyone who has already watched it, or if you don't mind the spoilers, let's go ahead and actually talk about the movie and the reason why I wouldn't recommend watching it. So the movie starts and they're all hanging out, they're doing their stuff, they're fantastic, they're walking around the city, people saying, hey, it's the thing, go lift the thing, say the thing, it's clobbering time, whatever. He's like, oh, don't say that, because apparently it's just in the cartoon and he doesn't like saying it because he doesn't want to be compared to the cartoon. But they get these messages from space, they don't know what it's saying, they try to decode it, but they have no idea, so then they just kind of skip over that. And then at some point, Silver Surfer comes down, she just approaches from space and everyone, oh, what's going on, what's happening, and then they get to where Silver Surfer is and she says, are you the protectors or of the planet or something like that, and they're like, yes we are, and it's like, you are marked for death, enjoy the time that you have, Galactus is gonna come eat you guys, and then so she leaves. Johnny Storm goes after her, and then he like grabs onto her surfboard and she leans down, she says something, and then kicks him off, and then he falls, and then they're pretty much just thinking of ways like, oh, what's gonna happen? Galactus is gonna come here. What is Galactus? Who is he? They're tracing energy signatures, this and that. Johnny is trying to decipher the thing that Silver Surfer said to him, because now he likes her apparently because she's a girl, I guess. Or in his words, he says, "I like space. I like girls. Space girl. Oh my god." And also during this time, Mr. Fantastic, he's working on teleportation. He teleports an egg from one spot to another, and I don't know. They kept focusing on the egg, and eventually they get a reading on where Silver Surfer has been and all the planets that were destroyed by Galactus, and so they sort of see where they're gonna go or whatever, and so they suit up, they get into their spaceship, and they fly off, and then they connect to this giant ring, and that allows them to move faster than light. And so they're over here going super fast across the galaxy. I don't know how far, and eventually they make it to this planet, and they're like, "Oh, look, this is a planet. He should be around here, or Silver Surfer should be around here." And then they start seeing it explode, and they're like, oh my god, what's happening? And so they start flying around, and they get caught in, because the thing blowing up the planet is Galactus's ship. So then they get caught in the tractor beam, because also I didn't realize he had a ship. I thought Galactus was just this giant cosmic entity who would just like eat the planet or something, but apparently he sits in a ship. He's a giant who sits in a ship, so the ship is destroying the thing. They get caught, they get brought to the front, and then Johnny's over here trying to talk to Silver Surfer, trying to get her number or something. And she's just like, she says some stuff, and then she translates what she said. And then so then he comes back and like, yeah, I got some information. And they get to Galactus, and Galactus says, all right, look, here's the deal. I won't eat the Earth. You got to give me your baby. Because also Susan Storm is pregnant. And so they were also trying to figure out, is something wrong with the baby, because they're two mutants or whatever, or they both have superpowers, and so she was worried that something was gonna be wrong with the baby or that whatever. So Fantastic is doing tests and like, nah, the baby's fine, and then Galactus says, that baby is a cosmic god and he's gonna take my place, so I need the baby. Give me the baby and your Earth is spared. And they're like, no way, Jose, we're not giving you the baby. And this whole time I was thinking, like, you guys are, I don't know how far away from Earth. You came here in a spaceship. Nobody could fly. Johnny can fly, but he needs air, obviously. His suit has air because Mr. Fantastic made it like that, but he said he can't fly or burn for more than 10 minutes or else all the air goes out. And so it's like, what are you going to do? Johnny basically, because Galactus is sitting in a pool of lava and he has tubes coming into his back, which are like feeding him, I guess, from the planet. And he's there's lava going into his back. Johnny flies through some of those tubes, breaks the tubes, and I guess Galactus gets hurt because he doesn't have the tubes coming in, but it's also like, wouldn't you just be able to close it real quick if something happened? You see this guy coming, he's gonna break the tubes. but then the lava falls on Galactus, and he's like, "Oh my god, lava!" But it's just like you have lava inside you. That's like if you just took a warm shower. Like nothing would happen. You would swat at him and try to kill him. But so Galactus is over here incapacitated for some reason, and the four start running. Silver Surfer starts running after them, and also when Silver Surfer left before they got here, when Johnny Storm grabbed the surfboard and she kicked him off, like you can see her fly off like instantly. She disappears in less than a second, so she's super fast. But they're running back to the spaceship at regular running speed. I don't know, 15 miles per hour, I guess. And she's like struggling to catch up, even though she's clearly super fast. So she's struggling to catch up. They throw stuff at her, I guess, and she like gets knocked back, even though she can phase through literally anything. Because she phased through their ship when they got stuck on the tractor beam, and she told them the message of what's gonna happen, and then she phased out again. But she can't catch them. They get to the ship. They fly off. They connect back into uh, the faster than light super engine thing, and then they start going faster than light, and then all of a sudden she's right behind them. So she too obviously can go faster than light. So how were they able to make it that long distance of the ship and her struggling to catch up? So that was like the first dumb plot point or like convenience. So they're flying. They're in like the way the movie portrays faster than light travel is when they do it, it's kind of like drag on a car or something, if like in a wind tunnel. That's what I understood it to be, but then they kind of change it. So they start faster than light travel. They got like this tube of like stars and stuff around them because of the drag, apparently. And she's following them. And then they say, "Oh, I have an idea. Let's get out of faster than light travel." So they like dive out of this tube that they were creating physically somehow, even though they're going the same. I don't know. That I didn't understand, and she gets like trapped in the tube for a couple more seconds, even though if you stop going that speed, that tube thing would cease to happen. So whatever. They get out. They end up next to a giant black hole, and so they say, "Oh, I have a plan. Get close to that black hole. There's gonna be a time dilation, and she's gonna get trapped for months, and we can escape." And so they get closer, and then the engine that they had that enabled the faster than light, it visibly gets destroyed, and then basically they're approaching the black hole. Silver Surfer behind them. Susan turns the ship invisible, but not the actual engine. So Silver Surfer believes that basically they're still going in the spaceship, but then actually their spaceship, which is invisible, ends up leaving. So they get out, and then Silver Surfer is like stuck in the black hole, and so she can't get out, and then the engine gets destroyed. So they get like out, but then they say, "Oh, we only have 20% or 40% gas left. We don't have enough to get back home." And then they say, "I have an idea. We're gonna slingshot we're gonna copy Interstellar and slingshot off of the singularity, and then we're gonna ride it back home." And so they have to hit like a certain speed or angle or trajectory or something, and then they do that. And then after they do that, they enter light speed somehow, even though they don't have the thing or the faster than light. So it like they didn't even need the engine apparently, or I don't know, maybe that was just more gas, I guess. But they end up back home with 20% gas, no additional engine, even though they didn't have enough, and whatever. So they're back home, and so the moment they get home, because also what happens when they slingshot Invisible Woman, she gives birth, so now the baby's out. They get back to Earth, and then there's a press conference like, "Oh, what happened? How did you beat Galactus? Are we safe? This and that." And then instead of having the public not panic or giving them a different reason or something, anything else, they say, "Well, what happens is Galactus wants our baby, and if we give him the baby, then the Earth is spared and everyone is fine. But we're not giving him the baby," which it adds weight later on, but it's kind of just like you didn't really have to say all that because now everybody hates the Fantastic Four because instead of saving, and again, it's like, oh, one life against these others. So whatever, you didn't have to say that. So everyone hates them, and then they say, "Give us the baby, save the Earth," this and that, and so story progresses, and the whole time they're thinking there's like tension in the family because Mr. Fantastic is this super mathematical logical thing. He says, "Oh, we could think of other ways, but one of the options is giving up the baby." And then Invisible Woman's like, "No, you can't do that. I hate you." And then so pretty much she ends up going outside, and she's like, "All right, look, everyone, this is my baby, and I'm not gonna give him up for the world, but I wouldn't give the world up for my baby because you guys are my family too, and we're gonna figure this out together." And then the whole world cheers, and everyone likes him again. And so Mr. Fantastic starts thinking of ways because obviously you're not gonna give up the baby, and the egg, the teleportation egg, it the idea is, which I started laughing because it's literally Patrick's. How about we take the planet and put it somewhere else? So the idea is he knows how to do teleportation with the egg, so he can move it from, he said 3 meters, so 9 feet across the room. He said we're gonna build these giant teleporters all around the earth. So every single country in the earth has to work together. They all bring resources. They all make these giant teleporters. And the idea is teleport the Earth. I don't know how far. Which I mean, Silver Surfer would just find the energy signatures or something, anyways, in like a couple days or a couple weeks. So whatever. There's a whole montage of them building, and like the whole movie, it's paced super weird. Like introduction, talking about the Fantastic Four, the Silver Surfer coming, them sort of figuring out, them going to see Galactus and then going back home. That was like the first half of the movie, and so like it all just happens extremely quick. There's really no sort of build up, and then from the second half to the rest, like the next quarter of the movie is just them building teleporters, which I don't think they needed it to be that long. Like literally, it was just a super long montage of the world building these teleporters, and so at the end of that, they start powering it up. Like, oh yeah, we all did it. We're all together, and we all need to do our part. Flex something, save the energy because it also requires a giant amount of energy. So all the teleporters start powering on. They almost have the entire grid. The last one is powering on, and then it explodes. And I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And it's Silver Surfer. She comes back. She's exploding all of these thingies, and then she's about to hit the one in New York, which is the last one because she destroyed every single other one in the world. But then Johnny Storm, when Silver Surfer translated the thing that she had said originally, he listened back to all the recordings that came from space, and they were all from her. They were all her, well, not her specifically, but her people, so her language. So he somehow translated the entire language of her people from one phrase that said, "Die with your own," which fine. So he stops her right before she blows it up, and he like plays all these recordings, and he's like, "Hey, look, I know what happened. I know where you came from. You sacrificed yourself for your people. I'm trying to sacrifice for myself for my people. Don't do this. We have the same thing. This and that. Whatever, whatever." And so she ends up like going crazy, and she leaves. So she doesn't blow it up. She leaves the earth, and she's like, "I can't do this." And then a couple moments later, they wonder, it's like, well, we don't have the teleporters anymore, so what are we gonna do? We can't do it again. We don't have the time. We don't have the resources. Galactus is coming because there's also they're tracking him. So he like went by Jupiter, and then he went by Mars, and then so he's by the moon basically. And he says, "Oh, I have an idea." So he has an idea, and then basically the idea is instead of teleporting the Earth away, you teleport Galactus away because they have that one teleporter still, and since Galactus wants the baby, they would use the baby as bait. Invisible Woman gets super mad again. She starts yelling, and then she disappears. And then it cuts to them being at the teleporter and like placing the baby in the little, like a bomb-proof, whatever proof, everything proof cradle. And they put him there, and they pretty much just wait. So then eventually Galactus shows up, and then he starts doing his super eye scan because his eyes turn blue. Randomly, they'll go from just like blue shiny to just regular purple eyes. So he scans the whole like city, and he sees the baby in the little carrier in the teleporter. So he starts walking over there, and I was expecting him to like do something, but he just walks. He gets there, and he sees because there's like a giant like caution tape line on the ground, and he's about to step over it, and he stops, and they're like, "Oh my God, why did he stop moving? Who? How could he have seen this?" And like, it's super obvious. Johnny Storm burns him in the eyes, and then Susan does something, and then something else. So pretty much they distract him, and then Johnny, he comes down, he grabs the baby, he switches it out with another one, and he flies back to the Fantastic Four tower, and that's their plan basically. And so he reaches down to grab it, but then he doesn't grab it because he feels like something is off. So he does a scan again, which obviously, if you could just scan everything and find that signature, like why wouldn't he do this? So he does it again. He sees that it's in the Fantastic Four building, and they're all like, "Oh my God, how he foiled our plans! Oh my God!" So he starts walking towards the building again, just walking. He does literally nothing but just walk. He's just a giant. So he's walking, and Johnny Storm is trying to get over there. He's trying to distract them. The Thing is trying to stop him. Susan Storm. They have a flying car. She decides to get into the car and drive under Galactus. Like what? She could have flown, go around, and get to the building. But whatever. Galactus ends up getting to the building. He reaches in. He grabs the baby, and then he starts walking back to his ship. I guess. So he starts walking, and then Mr. Fantastic, because since she was walking under Galactus, Susan Stone gets hit by a rock or something, so she gets knocked out. Mister, and then another part where I laughed in the theater is it shows Susan crash or get hit by something and she gets knocked out. It cuts to Mister Fantastic. He just turns and goes, "Oh my God!" And then like he doesn't say anything else, and then he just starts like doing his stretchy powers. Like that was the only line right there. It was dumb, and so he does this little stretchy powers. He jumps on a rock and then he jumps on another rock. He grabs a pole and he starts poking Galactus with like a stick basically. And then he opens like an ear hole and some lava falls out. And he's like, "Oh," and he closes it. And then Galactus grabs Mr. Fantastic and starts stretching him. And then at this point, he still has a baby. He's getting stretched, and then Susan, she comes out of the car and she starts doing like super magnet gravitational powers or whatever, light powers, and she starts pushing him off balance, and he's like, Galactus is doing absolutely nothing. He's falling over, he's grabbing onto buildings, and he's holding the baby. Which, I mean, yeah, if you're falling off balance, sure, but you're a god basically, and he's just falling over, getting pushed over, and then Johnny just kind of like trying to help and do stuff, and then the Thing, the whole time he's just holding the baby and like falling over, but they're pushing him, pushing him towards the teleporter, and then they're all doing their part. They're doing little things here and there, pushing him, dropping rocks, throwing things. The Thing is breaking down an entire building to make him lose his grip. So he falls into the Thing, and then Mr. Fantastic, before his hand goes into the portal, Mr. Fantastic comes in, grabs the baby, jumps out, and then he falls in. Everyone's like, "Oh yay, we did it!" And then he comes back out, and they're like, "Oh no, we didn't do it." And then so Johnny Storm sees that, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna sacrifice myself. Tell the baby I love him." And then so he starts flying towards Galactus. And right before he's gonna hit Galactus and jump into the portal with him, Silver Surfer comes out, smacks him, and then she says something, and then she goes super fast into Galactus, and they go into space, and they get teleported. And then they go back to Susan, and she's like passing out because she overexerted herself. And then Mr. Fantastic starts doing CPR. He tries, but then she ends up dying. And then the baby, which again I laughed in the theater, the baby comes out every single instance of the baby, except for maybe two or three when they actually use a real baby. It's such bad CGI, like it's terrible for being 2025. The baby was just some of the worst CGI I've ever seen. Like it looked so bad. But the baby comes in and it starts like touching the invisible woman like on the neck or something and like laughing and this and that, and she comes back to life, and so they're like, "Oh my God, you are cosmic being or something." And then that's pretty much the end of the movie. It cuts, and then but either that's it, or I'm thinking of the end credit scene, but pretty much it cuts to 5 years later, and then the baby's a little older, and she's like, "Oh, where's his favorite book?" And then Herbie is like, "Oh, here it is. This is," and it's like some philosophy book or something. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, I know that's his favorite book, but actually, he wants this one." And grabs like a little kid's book or something. Um, and she comes back, and then you see like the kid with Doctor Doom. So I think that was the end credit scene, but I don't know. It was too convenient, and all these plot holes and all these other things. I thought it was kind of dumb the way they did certain things. Like it was fine. I wanted to watch it, and I'm glad I did, but I wouldn't want to watch it again. And honestly, I thought Marvel was gonna start making a comeback. Thunderbolts was pretty good, and then they give us Fantastic Four, which apparently people like it, and maybe I'm just wrong compared to everybody, but I just didn't think it was good, and I don't think it's worth watching. If it's gonna come out on Disney Plus, then watch it there if you have that membership. But I wouldn't spend the money and the time going to the theaters. I don't think it's worth watching. But that's my take. That's it. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys later.